Hello students. Today we're going to look at scatter plots and trend lines, and this comes from chapter 9, lessons 1 and 2. And we're combining lessons 1 and 2 because they really go together easily, and I think you're going to catch on pretty quickly. So we're going to start with scatter plots and then we'll get to trend lines. A scatter plot is just basically that. It's a set of points that you put on a graph that represent some data. There's always going to be an X and a Y, and so we graph them as a set of ordered pairs just to look at the information that we're given. So if you look at this box up at the top, it gives you some information about what scatter plots are and how we can interpret them. So if we look at a scatter plot and we see that the data points generally go upward from left to right, that shows a positive association. And that also means that as X increases, Y also increases. Now, if we look at that another scatter plot and that the data points generally go downward from left to right, then that shows a negative association. And that is the same thing as X increases, Y decreases. And then the last one would be that the plots are just scattered all over the place and they really don't look like they're forming a line anywhere, then that would be no association whatsoever. And so we're going to look at some examples of those. And we're going to look at association examples by variables. It's important that you circle the variables there because we're looking just at the variables and how they associate with each other, the X and the Y. And so we've got this first one that deals with my age and my height. So as age increases, what happens to the height? Yes, it also increases. So that means it shows a positive association. Because as X increases, Y increases, and you can see that the line kind of goes up as we go from left to right. Now the next example we look at is shower time and hot water remaining left in the water tank. Okay, so how many minutes I take a shower and how much hot water is left for the next person. So you can see that the plots generally go downward from left to right. So we can say that as the shower time increases, the amount of hot water remaining decreases. So that would be a negative association. And again, because as X increases, the Y decreases, which makes it look like it's going downward. And that would be negative. Now the next associated or scatter plot we look at has to do with days of the week and the number of phone calls that somebody makes. Well, you can see that those plots are scattered all over the place, and you can't really tell if they're going up or down. So this would be no association. There's no association or comparison between the days of the week and how many phone calls that you make. The next thing we're going to look at is to see if there is a linear association in our scatter plot. Okay? A linear association would mean that if you drew a line like through all of those points, would it create more of a straight line or would it create more of a curve? And so we're going to look at, and the linear would be the straight line and the nonlinear would be kind of the curve. Okay? So if we look at this first one and it has to do with our age and our height, you can see that it is a positive association. And if I draw a line through that, it looks more like a straight line, so it really looks linear. Now, I'm not asking you to ever connect any of those points in a scatter plot. We never connect points in a scatter plot, but if we drew a line through the middle of the information, would it create a curve or a line? And this one creates more of a line, so we would call it a linear association. Now, if you look at this second one has to do with growth time and the weight of the pumpkin. So the longer a pumpkin grows, what happens to its weight? Well, you can tell that it's a positive association, but if we were going to draw a line through the middle of those points, would it create a curve or would it create a straight line? Well, you can see that there's kind of a curve going on here, so this would be a non-linear association. You'll remember from when we talked about linear equations and linear functions, linear means it creates a line. Well, this one isn't a line because it's a curve. Now, if we look at number 3, which is the days of the week and the number of phone calls, we said there was no association whatsoever at all. So if there's no association, then it's going to be a nonlinear association. And that's always the case. So again, we're looking at the variable association, which would be positive, negative, or no association, and then linear association is linear or not linear, whether or not you would form kind of a line in the middle of that data or a curve. The next thing we're going to look at is trend lines in a scatter plot. Okay, so I want you to write up here at the top, trend line. Okay, and we're going to write a couple things down about trend line. Trend line goes through the data with about half of the points above, and that's supposed to be no, half of the points below the line. So when we draw a trend line through a scatter plot, we're going to try to make it so that about half the points are above the line and about half are below the line. Sometimes you'll go through a point, but it's pretty rare if you actually go through one of the points that's on the scatter plot. So let's look at the scatter plot that they've given us. The boat sales at Dustin's Marina are given below. So in week 1, they sold 2 boats. In week 2, they sold 3 boats. In week 3, 5, 4, 8, and so on. And they plotted this on the graph, the number of weeks and the number of boats that they sold. And once they had all of those dots down, then they took a ruler and they drew a line through those dots so that about half of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, are above the line, and 1, 2, 3 are below the line. So again, it's about half. It doesn't have to be exact. And then we can use that line that we drew to make predictions. And so this one says, use the line of best fit, or trend line, they're both the same thing, to make a prediction about boat sales in week 9. So if we go over to our graph on week 9, and we go up here, how many boats will they sell in week 9? Well, the approximation based on the trend line is about 16. Because if I go up here to here, 9 weeks is about 16 boats. So we can use that as a prediction. Now, does that mean it's exactly going to be happening in 9 weeks? They're going to sell 16 boats? No, not necessarily. But if we're making predictions for the future, then we could probably assume that after 9 weeks, they're going to sell 16 boats. So we're using a scatter plot to make a prediction about our data. So let's go a little bit further with exercise number 1 down here. The table shows the number of new members to join the outdoor club. So the day 1, they have 3 new members. So let's make a scatter plot. So on day 1, we have 3 members. On day 2, they have 6, so we go to 2 and go up to the 6. Day 3, they have 4 members, so 3 to the 4. Day 4, they have 3 members, 4, 3. Day 5, they have 6 members, so 5, 6. And day 6, they have 4 members. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 members. And so we have a scatter plot. Now, does it look like it's going up or down? No, it's all over the place. There really isn't, you can't see or tell if they're going up, or if as x increases, y increases, or if x increases, y decreases. There's really no plan. That's just a random scatter plot. So there really is no association. And if there's no association, then there's no trend line, and there's no way to make a prediction. Okay? So sometimes we can do a scatter plot, and we can draw a line of best fit. Other times it's a scatter plot, and there's really no line that can go through those, so we can't really make a prediction of how many new people there will be after 9 weeks, because it's really random. So what I'd like for you to do for your practice problem for this video is to finish number 2. The table shows the value of Heather's portfolio in thousands of dollars at the end of each year. So at the end of the year, if year one, it's worth $90,000, and end of year two, it's worth $70,000. And so what you're going to do is you're going to draw a scatter plot. And then from that scatter plot, you're going to draw a line of best fit or a trend line, and you're going to draw it through the data. So about half the points are above and half the points are below the line. And then you're going to make a prediction. Use the line of best fit or the trend line to make a prediction about the value of Heather's portfolio after 8 years. So you're going to go over here to 8 years and go up and see where it touches the line of best fit, and then make a prediction of how much it's going to be worth. When you're finished, take a picture of this side of your notes page, the whole side, so that I can see all of the notes that you did, and then your practice problem, and then submit that through Edmodo.